Welcome back again. So now just to continue where I left off in the last part. Um, so the moguls, Jack Warner, Harry Cohn, Samuel Goldwyn, Louis B. Mayer, they ran their studios like tyrants. And it was only people like independent actors, one of them being, and this is the name I couldn't think of in the last part, Frederick March, who had he was an independent actor. So he could go and work for whatever studio he wanted to. But very few people had that kind of wherewithal to be a freelance or an independent actor like that. They could go from studio to studio to studio. Also, another person that had that kind of a contract was, or at least that kind of a business model was Paul Mooney. And one of the, they were the precursors to the way in which actors work now. It doesn't matter who they are with. They simply, or what agency they are a part of, they work for whatever studio, whatever script they like. But not all the actors had either the clout or the willingness to step out and be independent like that. And it was to this that, in this form of the studio system, that Bud Schulberg was writing about when he wrote the book, What Makes Sammy Run. And as I said before in an earlier episode, Sammy Glick works his way out west. He first comes out of New York in the newspaper business, and he goes into, he travels out to LA, to Hollywood, and then ingratiates himself into that milieu and into that business model. But he is really a wrecking ball in terms of that business model. And just to explain something, one thing that, and I'm especially going to talk about Louis B. Mayer. One of the things that Louis B. Mayer and his business model at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer understood was that you had to always know how to deal with the Wall Street people. Because the Wall Street people were the ones who were financing everything, the people back east. So his thing was, look, just give me the money. See, because as I said before, alluded to before, the Wall Street people were the WASP. They were the people who had the Knickerbocker or the Brahmin background. They really did not want to have anything to do with the motion picture business. They saw that as being cheap, tawdry. If they made a profit from it, fine. It was fine for making money, but that was not something that you made a career out of. And that was the change once you introduced it, and once they found out that not only were movies influencing American customs and the American culture, but also when advertising became dominant, then that's when Wall Street really grabbed the brass ring or went whole hog out into Hollywood to take everything over. But nevertheless, Louis B. Mayer, his thing was, well, you just give the Wall Street people a good ROR or ROI, and they'll leave you alone. Well, Samuel Goldwyn was not of this mind. His mind was, look, if you take the king's money, you're going to sing the king's song. And what is meant by that is simply this, that you will not have the kind of independence that you will need to have in order to explore certain topics within the American society. Indeed, one of the things that the Hollywood system had to yield to was to the Hays Code, instead of going straight to a rating system, which would have been better. But nevertheless, they had to yield to that Hays Code, which said, you know, you can't talk about certain subjects explicitly. And even though that was not enforced for the first part of the 30s, later on, you know, it became more stricter. It had more teeth to it because Wall Street was behind it. You know, if you were not doing something that was profitable, or at least that was going to cause more problems and injury to the consumerability of the picture, the product, the movie, you had to edit it, scrap it, and everything else like that. So Samuel Goldwyn left the partnership, but Louis B. Mayer remained, in terms of MGM, the head of the studio. And he founded his own studio where he could make and finance, which he did mostly himself, finance the kind of movies that he wanted to see. And just to take Samuel Goldwyn for a second, you know, his thing was, again, exploring the ways in which money, very interestingly enough, was influencing American society. But just to finish up on what makes Sammy Run, I'm going to return to Samuel Goldwyn in a minute. There's just a couple of things that I want to highlight in the book, What Makes Sammy Run, because you need to understand the mindset of that period. And here it is explained in one of the sections about the mentality of Hollywood back then. And this is, again, the character of Kit talking. She said, Hollywood may be full of phonies, mediocrities, dictators, and good men who have lost their way. But there is something that draws you there that you should not be ashamed of. Indeed, that something was notoriety, riches, whatever you could conceive of in terms of this new thing that was germinating called celebrity. And also the ability to get a bigger bank account, investment in, you know, because many of these actors, you must understand, were no ones. You know, they were nobodies. They didn't come from anything, and this was a very quick way for you to not only make money, but to become somebody that was very important. And Sammy Glick was one of these people. He was the embodiment of one of these people. And he was able to wean and weasel his way to the top. And there is this great scene. I'm not going to give a spoiler to how the book ends, but there's this great scene where he finally reaches the pinnacle. And he is talking to a fictional studio head, which is supposed to represent these moguls, Jack Warner, Louis B. Mayer, Harry Cohn, type of person who is the embodiment of the old way. And here I am going to read you one of this very important encounter, because in it you can see what it is all about in terms of the way in which one period ends and another begins, and the period that we all know really begins. And let me see. Here it is. It's right here. And the name of the studio head is Feynman. But anyway, he says to Sammy Glick, they're having a meeting, and this is before the Wall Street people are going to come out and do an evaluation. And Feynman is talking, you know, one generation is talking to another of the people who would run Hollywood. And he is saying to Sammy Glick, you may not have learned it yet, and I hope you never will. But this is a business with a very short memory. It doesn't matter what you did last year or the year before. If your last few pictures are lemons, you're in hot water. That's why I've decided to talk to you, Sammy. I know you appreciate how much I've done for you, and I felt you'd be willing to help me. Help. That was the turning point. See, he's talking about the transition from one generation to another. That was the moment Sammy had been waiting for. They want, this is Feynman talking again, they want the Wall Street people. They want to try to find out why we slumped to third place among the major studios this year. And I have it from a fairly reliable source that Harrington, now he is the head financier of the studio, certainly one of the top Wall Street guys. The chairman of the board favors a new production chief. That's what Feynman is. Now, these aren't men who know pictures. Very important. These aren't men who know pictures. They've got ticker tapes in their brains. They know the pictures I let you make have been our most solid money makers, and they'll be interested in hearing what you've got to say. You know what I mean. I want them to know that we are working well together. And if I'm still in harness, I'll tell you what I'll do for you. Let you make 4 of the A's. So he's talking about the A pictures. The primary pictures to which the studio's fortune mostly rely in their annual report. And even suggest that you head your own independent unit. If that's what you want, I'll get a new assistant. There's a new lad on the lot called Ross, who's supposed to be very promising. Sammy could see him, talking about Feynman, shrinking as if he had drunk an Alice in Wonderland potion, wondering what the hell keeps the weak sister in this office at 5 G's a week. You see, now the old movie mogul is starting to descend into a position of not only weakness, but just downright pathetic. Yeah. Yeah, downright pathetic. I would even go so far as to say non-existence. See, the weakening of the hold that the moguls had is evident in this scene. And we're going to pick this back up. I'm going to stop it right here, and then we're going to pick this right back up in the next part.